guys, and welcome back to Runway from the Rav, a Project Runway podcast. My name is Riley.
And I'm Maggie.
And today we'll be discussing Season 16, Episode 11, called Warrior Fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So today's episode was the Avon Challenge, which I've been waiting for all season because makeup. But this one was an interesting twist because this time they brought in breast cancer survivors as kind of the inspiration for that warrior woman aspect, which I think everybody's been touched by cancer in some level, knows somebody or has a loved one or maybe suffered from it themselves. Breast cancer, I think, is 1 in 8 women will get it. Not like might, but like 1 in 8 will. So that's a disturbing statistic. So I'm glad that they brought up breast cancer and that Avon supports that on their own and that Project Runway made it the focus of this challenge. That was nice.
Yeah.
And then obviously a bit of an emotional challenge for some designers who've been affected by cancer. And I think I can say for all humans on Earth, cancer sucks.
Yeah, absolutely.
In all forms, in all varieties. Wow, cancer, just stop.
Mm-hmm.
Could you just not? Ever. Thanks. Signed, Earth.
Yes.
But this time they were challenged to create an editorial look, like a high fashion editorial look, inspired by the warrior women they met. And how they met was they kind of had like I don't know if you ever saw America's Next Top Model, but they used to get Tyra mail. And that was, like, how they got their challenge. And I know that, like, Heidi occasionally writes notes, but normally they just show up and Tim tells them the challenge. But this time they got, like, a little, like, designers, like, meet me here. Mm-hmm. And I was just like, Tyra mail! And they had pink boxing gloves. So everybody was taking it really literal. And like, oh, my gosh, we're going to have to make, like, boxing outfits or whatever. But Lil Kentaro was like, because it's just him and Brandon now in the boys' dorm. And he's like, it's not about the glove, it's about the pink. And I was like, yes, like, because of Susan Komen's foundation, like it or love it, it has made pink synonymous with breast cancer, and awareness for that. So they met these warrior women at like a boxing boot camp. They were literally in the ring, and watching them get in there was kind of fun. And then after they met the women and they got to learn about their stories and everything, they went through a boxing boot camp. Which was like, I don't know, each of them got like 5 minutes to like punch a guy's hands.
Yeah.
And get some aggression out. No. And Tim was wearing a sweatsuit. Yeah. I will say. But he looked very fashionable. I think he was like black or really dark gray sweats. He did not box.
No.
We know that Tim's sport of choice is now bowling, based off last year with Rick.
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah, in the finale episodes, went bowling with Rick. He's like, look at me, I'm a jock now. So we know, Tim's not a boxer, but some of the designers like got into it. Like apparently, like Ayana and folk, get some aggression out. So that was pretty much like the premise.
Yeah.
And that they would get $250 at Mood, and this would be a 2-day challenge, which we haven't had very many. This is probably like the third, maybe the fourth 2-day challenge. And that because it's the Avon challenge, the makeup was important. Tim said that. We'll get to later how it actually was not important at all. But he mentioned, because this is the Avon challenge, and the Avon lady was there talking about it. So how'd you feel about the challenge?
It was pretty cool. I guess the only thing, I wish it would have been another real woman challenge. Like, I kind of thought that's where they were going with it.
It should have been.
But then they were just like, no, they're just here to inspire you.
Yeah.
Which, like, that's great. Like, they are inspirational, but it could have been so much better.
Could we have made them a cool dress or a cool outfit to wear someplace?
I'm sure they would have loved that.
Yeah, or if like Avon had like and I don't know, they might, but had like a yearly like annual event for like breast cancer survivors or for like Avon folks, and they could have worn it there or something. So yeah, it confuses me when we get like a group of real women. And then it's like, but you'll use your models. And I get they've invested more in the models this year. We have like the model mirror. We got to meet them more. And they have a wider range of sizes of themselves to kind of encapsulate that real women. But it's just like, I would rather make something that a breast cancer survivor would feel like really powerful and beautiful and like healthy in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm glad that we got to meet them and hear some of their stories at the very least. So then we went to Mood, and so there's only 5 designers. They're just kind of running around. They all pretty much know where to go. Some people, like Kenya, was like, I want red fabric, and then ended up buying all blue.
Yes. Yes.
Brandon was like, I think I'm going to, like, go out the box and pick different colors. And then he picked a muted pink and a muted mauve and white. So, no. So they were both like, oh, we're going to do this. And then did the opposite. Mm-hmm. And then at some point, Ayana blew a whistle when she was, like, getting ready to check out. Whoa! Swatch does not like whistleblowers, okay? He started barking, and Tim was like, oh, he doesn't like that. Ayana's like, I'm done, I'm sorry. And poor Swatch was like, no, heck no, do you know how loud that is? So that was, I just like the Swatch moments, and we're getting near the end of the season, so like, I gotta get him while I can. Mm-hmm. I gotta get him while I can. And this is a little aside, not in the episode, but on Twitter, Project Runway put out a little Halloween special where Swatch is the guest judge for a dog Halloween costume runway.
Oh my god.
They bring Cha-Cha from this season and 2 other previous Project Runway designers from other seasons to design Halloween outfits for this lady's dogs. I think she's the behind the seams lady. I don't know her name, but she does like little like behind the seams like when designers get eliminated. But yeah, Swatch guest starred as the judge. He had a lot of great critiques. He was obviously really focused on what was going on and, just great. He wasn't like, I like pants, I like blue. No. Swatch had great feedback, Almost as funny as Michael Kors. Just kidding. He slept almost the entire time. Do you have anything about mood?
No. No. You covered it. Covered it all.
I mean, with only 5 designers and since the twins have been gone, there's been no drama, which is great. But it just means that we move through these beats a little faster to get to the runway. So when we get to the workroom, about over half of the folks were struggling. Kenya was struggling because I think she was like, I hit a creative wall. So she's like, everybody else is working, cutting patterns. And she's like, I'm drinking caffeine. Mm-hmm. And she was really struggling with just not sure what to make. She had a lot of passion for the challenge because she had known people affected by cancer, but was just like, I don't know what to make. And it's getting so long in the competition that, like, I get creatively drained sometime by, like, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. And I'm not, like, having to make something in, like, with my hands in, like, 10 minutes every day for weeks in front of national television. I do creative work, as do you. And occasionally you can get burnt out. Mm-hmm. But it's like, she doesn't have time to be like, it's like, oh, no, if you're not working, your time's up. Yeah. Ayana also struggled a little bit initially, just with, like, not quite sure what she wanted to make. But once she gets on, like, her track, she's set. Mm-hmm. And she ended up creating, like, she made a 2-piece look. She made, like, the whole top piece, like, in the first day, which is nice with the 2-day. You have some time. Yeah. And then Kentaro was also struggling. He had a good first idea, but it ended up not fitting his model. And we'll get to that in just a second. But he ended up, then his critique with Tim made him even more like, I don't know what to make. And he's like having to remake his top like on the second day. And he's just like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So, then we saw Ayana call home. And I'd forgotten, she's actually the last person we haven't seen call home. Mm-hmm. So last week, I believe we saw Kenya and Michael. And then this week we say Ayana called her mom. And they had a nice little chat. And so that's always nice that they get at least a chance. And maybe it's more often, but they only let us see it so often, like, I don't know, the producers only let you see so many of them. They might have all had a call on the same day, but it's kind of nice. And then back to Kentaro's look. He originally made a crop top hooded sweatshirt out of this gray fabric he picked. And he was working with Jasmine. And they gave him like a 20 model, dress form. And he asked Margarita, is this right? Because he hadn't worked with Jasmine before and she had. And she said, no, on top she's an 18. So Kentaro made his top a size 18. And then when Jasmine went to put it on, it was too small. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying Margarita intentionally sabotaged. But it seemed a little like, well, they gave you a 20 dress form, and that's what everybody's working off with Jasmine. Use the dress form. Mm-hmm. But because they all trust each other and like each other at this point, so it was just like, it was too tight by like a size or 2. So it's like, I don't know if it would have saved Kentaro's look or not. But it was really tight on Jasmine, like getting it over just her head. Yeah. And then obviously the rest of her, because Kentaro was like, well, I can put it on. I'm like, well, you're a small man. Yeah. And Jasmine, she's busty. She has a lot of hair, and it's just like, And she's way taller than him. I'm just like, she's bigger. Like, she just is.
It's a completely different body type.
Yeah. Well, about as different as you can be. And it's just like, so I don't know what exactly went there, and maybe she's like an 18 in dresses, but not in other things. And like, it was even kind of small in Kentaro for the hood part.
Yeah.
So he ended up having to scrap that top, and then ended up his only backup fabric was black. Which Kentaro got called out for in like episode 2 for using black too much, which, sorry, but last season Rick and Laurence used black almost the entire season individually, or like Mahjong or Kini using denim, or like Dom using patterns or something, or Aaron's applique, and it's just like, oh, but this you're going to call out in episode 2. So, yeah. And then he has avoided black, I'll give him that, making similar silhouettes, and I like that he's playing with color, don't get me wrong, but like the second he went back to black, it was like seen as weakness, and I don't know. Then they did get a makeup consult with Hector, and we have seen Hector throughout the season. He's like the Avon guy who does the makeup, who's like, oh, we'll give a bold red lip, and then it's like lip gloss. It was slightly better this time, but Kenya, I don't know if it was her choice or Hector's, but her model was going to wear a blue dress. So they put her in blue eyeshadow. And normally you match the tone of your eyeshadow to your outfit, like warm or cool tone generally. I don't think you match color to color much anymore. Or unless it's like a really bright statement color. But when your whole dress is the same color blue, and then they attempt to mock that blue on your eyes, it looked bad, and Lyris is beautiful. And it looked bad and like smudged. And then with Jasmine and Kentaro, he wanted like a bold lip, and Hector was like, how about this like bright bluey purple? And Kentaro was like, I'm scared. Like, he was like, I'm not sure. Hector's like, you'll love it. And he puts it on, and he's like, I'm not convinced you like it. And they just cut away. And Jasmine was wearing that in the final look. And spoiler alert, that's the only makeup they talked about from the judge's perspective. So I think Margarita did like a smoky golden eye to bring out the gold in her garment. Brandon's is always like minimal. Lyris had blue and then bright red lipstick, because if you have blue eyeshadow, bring America back in with a little red lip, so you know.
Well, a note on Brandon's was he had Misha, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was his when Hector was like, let's give her a nice raccoon eye.
Yeah, because that's what she wanted.
I was just like...
And it was just this, like, super smudged out, like, black liner.
Yeah.
So even if you were going for a raccoon eye, that wasn't quite it. But it just kind of looked like she smudged her liner, which, honestly, is probably Brandon's aesthetic. Yeah. Of, like, his oversized kind of asymmetrical stuff. But, yeah, raccoon eye. And I'm just like...
That term, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you should have negative. Full negative. And then, let's see. Who am I missing? I don't remember the makeup for Ayana. She just wanted, like, a bold red lip, I think. And then... more neutral on the eyeshadow, and then Kentaro wanted neutral eyeshadow and then a bold lip, but I think it was a little bolder than he intended.
Yeah.
Otherwise, do you have anything else from the workroom?
Not really. No. I mean, it's getting quiet. It's only what, 5?
There's only 5. They had a 2-day challenge, so everybody's obviously busy working. It's a very important challenge in terms of like, you cannot complain about the challenge. So they either had to just complain about like the fabrics they got, or, you know, things like that, because it's like warrior women or warrior fashion, and then breast cancer survivors, like, you can't touch any of that with a 10-foot pole, right? Yeah. Like, and you can't complain about your models because you're the top 5. You've been working these models the whole time. So it's like, when they had mistakes, like even Kentaro, he made his look too small, but he was just like, it's my fault. Yeah. You know, he didn't try to say like, well, Jasmine's too big, or well, Margarita lied. It's too small. You know, I made it too small. Or when Margarita was like struggling with she made like this golden kind of like corset. And when she decided to zip it up, she's like, it's shorter than I intended. But, you know, she's not saying, oh, Sonia's too tall, or like blah, blah, blah. She's just like, oh, I'll just fix it, you know. So that's nice to not hear so much negativity. Margarita is still a little... Her and Brandon both had a few lines this time in their talking heads where it's just like, geez. I'll get to one of Brandon's as my quote a week. But I think he said a couple times of other people's stuff where I'm like, a little cattier than he has been. Yeah. About like Ayana or stuff like that. And then Margarita's always, I don't like that, and I don't like this, I don't like that. And it's like, you make it hard to like you sometimes because your personality is nice. initially, and obviously she was very deeply affected by this challenge, and that felt very genuine when she was like tearing up or getting emotional. I'm like, I get it, cancer sucks. So like I don't blame you there. And she didn't let it distract her. Sometimes she lets stuff distract her in the workroom, but the only other thing I will mention in the workroom was when Tim came around for his critiques. He pretty much liked everybody's stuff except for Kintaro's. He was a little iffy about the black fabric and some of those things. That was before the top didn't fit. And then with Margarita's, he was like, it could lean costumey, but I don't think it does. I love it. So he gave her the blessing on her look, even though when he said costumey, she like stepped back. She's like, I can see it. Do you think that's an issue? And I'll have a quote of the week for that conversation later. But he was just like, I like it. I give my blessing. And sometimes Tim says, I hate it, change it, it's ugly. Sometimes he says, I love it. And sometimes that goes on to be good or bad. And we'll see when we get to the runway. But he unequivocally said, I love it. And that'll come up later. So, on to the runway?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it. Short runway this week. Our guest judge is Rachel Brosnahan. She's an actress. So again, we have a young female actress.
Nothing to do with the challenge.
Yeah, I don't know. They mentioned what show she's on, but I didn't really pay attention. I have a quote from her this week. Not a great quote. I just wish, especially for this challenge, I wish either they had had a makeup artist or someone from Avon to judge the makeup exclusively, or I wish they'd had somebody who is a breast cancer survivor. There are plenty of actresses and famous women who are breast cancer survivors, or at least like a strong advocate for it. Yeah. And I'm just like, that would have been to be like, I would feel like a warrior in this, or the way that you fit it around, like that could be easily changed for people of different sizes or what, instead of just actress number, 15.
It's a lot of disconnect.
Yeah. I just wish we either stuck with other fashion related people or someone related to the challenge. So this time I would have been happy if you even had like some YouTube makeup artist person on. Like I'd be fine with that, to be honest. I didn't really like the blogger from like, was last season or the season before. They had like a random blogger. But if it's a blogger about makeup or something, I would allow it. If it's like Nikki Tutorials from YouTube or somebody else, I would allow it. Lisa Eldridge or something. But no, it was another actress. So first up, we had Brandon, and I will name the models this time because we're down to only 5 people, and because the models are also getting eliminated. So it took me a couple episodes to recognize this. It's like, oh, they're just getting down to fewer, but they're still pulling from the same pile. But no, the models have their own individual elimination that is not related to whether or not they're in a winning look or a look that goes home. So that's why we're only seeing the same models now. So like a bunch are gone. And some I liked. And I'm like, no, bring them back. I'm sure they'll be in the final collections. But so Brandon had Misha, who I love. Her personality is very fun. And she seems to like be a chameleon where she just makes any outfit, no matter how ridiculous. She like owns it. Like last week she had like a hard hat on her head, askew, with a headscarf, with like a skirt of fencing. And she was like, badass. And this week she looks like, I don't know, like an Assassin's Creed ninja.
Yeah.
Still looks cool. So what Brandon sent down is a crop top.
Imagine that.
Imagine that, with a really strong drop crotch pant that's kind of loose over a pair of like white leggings. The crop top itself is a white hoodie, but the hoodie is like scrunched closed, so everybody called it a bonnet instead of a hood. And then over top of that white hoodie is this like really, really light pink, and then this really, it looked mauve in some angles, but it actually looks more tan in this image. He called it Neapolitan ice cream look. So it's like pink and tan. It's got random straps. It's got buckles. It's oversized compared to the white hoodie. And then the bottoms, the front and back panels are pink, and then the little side panels are tan, and then underneath that is white like leggings. Again, straps and buckles just wherever the heart takes you. What did we think of Brandon's?
Well, as usual, it was very Brandon. I don't know. I mean, I think Kenya mentioned it this week, how, like, it was in one of her talking heads, how she's like, Brandon's a good designer, but everything kind of looks the same. And, like, that is how it's becoming for me, too. Like, it's just, like, I don't know, I'm not surprised each week. Like, it looks fine, and I kind of like his take on it. Like you just mentioned earlier, like, it does kind of look like a video game assassin, which is kind of cool. But, I don't know. I guess it's just not my aesthetic. I don't know. It's alright. I didn't hate it. Didn't love it. What'd you think?
It's not my least favorite thing Brandon's ever made. I, like, half the judges preferred it without the hood, or if the hood was down. I think having the hood up, too, is a little too much. Just coverage. I get that this is his aesthetic, and I think it's totally fine that it's not my aesthetic. Just like last season, I didn't like Aaron's aesthetic. But a lot of his looks within that same aesthetic have the same color palette. They have all the same details, and it just, I think Kenny said, it's one note. And he's not, to me, he's not surprising me within that note. He's not then changing up the silhouette or changing up his color palette or anything. It's the same color palette, the same. How many times now has he made a crop top? At least out of 11 episodes, I would say at least over half. And probably like half of that's been a crop top hoodie.
Yeah.
So it just, but the judges, I think, literally said, like, we know it's you, we can tell it's your aesthetic, but it surprises us every time. I'm like, no. I think he has the most defined, like, this is my aesthetic than anybody else on this season, so maybe that's why they like it so much. But to me, I don't hate it. I like this more than some of the other stuff that he's made, but it just seems a little overdone.
Yeah.
With the straps, and then also the color, and then also, but it's also got buckles, but it's also a crop top. But it's not just one crop top, it's actually two crop tops layered on top of each other, but then there's also a hood, and it's also super long sleeves, but it's also leggings, and I don't know. Some of the details are nice, but it's a lot for me. But he was on top. They all got critiqued. So you're either top or bottom, and he was on top. Next up, we had Ayana, and her model was Christina, and Christina also has a very fun-loving personality. Christina is the model that Margarita threw under the bus several episodes ago when she made, like, the J-Lo Miami look, and then said it was all Christina's idea. But Christina, she's still nice, happy about it. So what Ayana put down, it's this white, or maybe very light blue, with kind of a striped, like, top, high-necked, and then it's got, like, this asymmetrical frill off one shoulder. It's got kind of poofy sleeves. It's got an asymmetrical kind of diagonal, like strap of, like, I don't even know, suspender kind of thing. And that one goes up over the shoulder at an angle, and then the other one's, like, goes down over her elbow. And then the pants are this black and white stripe, and it's actually the back of the fabric, because the front of the fabric was like a polka dot. And with those, she made full-length, kind of flowy pants with the stripes going down. And then she made, like, a wrap skirt that the suspenders are hooked onto, and it's this asymmetrical little skirt that goes over the pants, and those stripes go sideways and diagonal. It's a lot.
It is a lot.
What'd you think?
To me, I think I liked the idea of it more than I like the actual piece. Like, she was kind of going for, like, a more powerful, like, businessy look. And I thought that was a really cool idea. But, yeah, like, looking at it, I just feel like the shirt is insane. And, like, I guess for editorial, it works. Because it's certainly not, like, an everyday kind of piece. But I don't know. I like parts of it. I kind of like the layering of, like, the skirt piece over the pants. Like, that looked kind of cool to me. But I just thought the shirt was just so, I don't know, over the top and very overdone. But I don't know. It was just okay for me. What do you think?
I agree. I like the idea better than the final execution. Yeah. I forgot to mention with the shirt, it's, like, ruffled down, like, in a stripe from, like, the hip, and then it goes across to the shoulder on the front, and then from that shoulder, it crosses over to the other shoulder on the back, and then becomes, like, a cape of ruffles at an asymmetrical diagonal cut down to her other arm. So I think the top for me is where it's failing. I wish the top was more simple. I get that it's an editorial look, but I think the pants and the bottoms bring it there with, like, the lines and the way she made it. Zach Posen, I know he gets a lot of critique for, like, touching the models and getting up close. Like, if it wasn't for him, before he started, I don't think they did this close-up fashion thing. They just saw it on the runway and, 5-second first impression, that's what they judged on. But now they bring it up close because he's a craftsman. So, you know, he's like, and he saw that she lined up all the lines and the pattern and everything, and saw how she kind of sewed and edged stuff and did a lot of hand sewing, so he can kind of be like, hey, this is cool. Mm-hmm. And I really liked the idea of the power pantsuit for a woman.
Yeah.
Like, I know that really came into fashion in like the 80s, I think, but now today it's just like, yeah, like women now execute their power not so much by like burning bras and stuff like that, but by like owning companies and buying businesses and, you know, being successful businesswomen and like advocates and stuff. So I liked that idea. Mm-hmm. And she feels like a fashiony lawyer that kind of got like caught in the elevator or something. So I like the idea, but the execution is just, it's a lot. It's too much. It's a little overworked.
It's a lot.
And just something about the back of the shirt and the ruffle is just very weird and unresolved for me. But, you know, like Cha-Cha said in episode 1, regret the ruffle. Don't do the ruffle. Next up, we had Margarita, and her model was Sunita. And I'm proud to say she doesn't look like Cruella de Vil to me this week. No, this week she looks like Wonder Woman. Mm-hmm. So Margarita's look, she's very inspired by the idea of that, like, cancer causes this chaos in your life and everything is very tumultuous, and so that she wanted to kind of illustrate that in a dress and then have a corset that brought it together and anchored you, kind of like your family and friends do. So you're fighting this horrible battle and you're sick and you feel awful, but your family and your friends are like your support. That idea, that concept is beautiful, and I really liked it. I wish if she had chosen a different color palette, I would have probably really liked this garment. But what she went for is it's bright red, like ketchup red, tulle and some other type of fabric that she kind of ruched and bunched and layered as the skirt, and then a little like tulle ruffle comes out on one, it's the right shoulder. So it comes out from the corset and then tucks under the arm and goes away again. So it's just this one little lopsided asymmetrical ruffle. The back is then also tiered and kind of gathered, and then over top of all that, she has this metallic gold leather that she sewed into a very small corset. Not in terms of tightness, but in terms of just it's
not very tall.
Yeah, it's not very tall. So it doesn't make a ton of impact, but it's there. And then the back, it's just like a band. And then the dress is strapless and largely backless. And then she ended up sewing zipper into the corset, so it's like a zipped up little corset. What did we think? Oh, and I'm sorry, and it ends about ankle length. What did we think of Margarita's?
Well, I agree with everything you said, like, about the idea. The idea was really beautiful. Like, that was a really cool concept. But, yeah, on the runway, like, I think it's that color palette. Like, it did make it read very, very costumey. Like, it does look like Wonder Woman, because those are her colors. I don't know.
Well, it may have felt less Wonder Woman-y, but, like, Wonder Woman just came out a few months ago, and at the time of this filming, like, 2 months before. So it's odd timing, too.
Yeah, and, like, I don't know. Even if she said, like, no, it's not Wonder Woman, like, yes it is, because that was the challenge, like, Warrior Woman, Wonder Woman, like, you can't get around that one. It's a pretty literal interpretation in that sense, but I don't know. I'm not sure, like, what would you have done instead of, like, the gold or the red?
I think this would be super successful with a white dress and keeping the gold, or I would have really actually liked this in black and white.
Yeah, I think black, yeah.
Like either a black corset with a white dress. The black corset, even with this red, would have looked better, but then probably not quite the right fit. But I think black and white just would have made this look so elegant, because I like the dress part. And I like the corset idea. It's just the red and gold. And Margarita did say red's her power color. And that's cool. Like, you know, resort to your power color when you need to. But then pulling in this warm, shiny gold, it's just like, gosh, if that corset was any other color, this probably would have been okay. If the corset was black or like a brown or something, it probably would have been okay. But, or just bigger. I wish the corset was bigger, because she meant it as like armor. But it's just so small. And then Sunita's a small model with a small bust, but she looked like she was constantly pulling it up, which is the bane of all strapless garments. But it was especially bad here. Like, I think Heidi, when they were looking at it up close, she's like, I want to pull it up. And then like a minute later, she's like, I have to pull it up. And Sunita's like, oh my God. And Heidi Klum's long nailed fingers are now hiking off the front of her dress. So I want to like this. Margarita's concept was very good. I felt like she was very genuine in how she felt about this challenge this week. And I like the dress itself, I think is pretty. Mm-hmm. It's just the colors. I think if the colors were different, even if the underside was blue with the gold, fine.
Yeah.
But I think black or white, ooh, or like a nice silver, could have been great. She was in the bottom though, and I don't know if I mentioned it, but Ayana was in the top.
As was Brandon.
Yeah. As was Brandon, yes. So next up we had Kentaro, and his model was Jasmine, and she struggled a bit to get into his first look because he sewed it too small, but so he had to scramble, and what he ended up putting down the runway was a little more samurai inspired than his original idea. So it's black, navy, and white, and it's got like this white kind of turtleneck tight garment underneath with long sleeves, and then over top of that is this black kind of kimono-esque top, like tunic top, and then the bottom is like this gathered navy skirt that kind of shows that there's a white skirt underneath that's like multiple layers. There's a couple straps going on, and then he tied like basically an obi belt. He just didn't tie it, he just looped it around like her neck. And that was also navy color. And then his model, we mentioned the makeup when we talked about Hector, but I'll mention this here because he got critiqued on it a bit, or it was the only makeup mentioned was Jasmine's lip color, which was like this bold bluey purple. What did we think of Kentaro's?
Definitely not my favorite of his. Like, you could tell that he kind of struggled to pull this one together. It, like, I mean, I can definitely see, like, the Asian influences in it, but to me, like, on the runway, all I could think of was, like, nun or priest. Like, that's how it read to me. Did you get that at
like
all?
A battle monk? I can see it. Yeah, I can see it.
That was, like, all I could see. I couldn't get past that. I don't know. I didn't get, like, a strong warrior vibe from it. Like, I could see where he was going, but to me, it just wasn't super successful this week. But, I mean, he turned it around with, like, what he had.
Yeah, at least he made something.
I don't know. Not my favorite of his. What'd you think?
I will say that he had to make this second, like, top very quickly, and I don't have it as a quote of the week, but I just remembered that he did say this. He's like, I'm making this dress faster than cup of noodle.
Yeah,
which,
hilarious.
you make in like a minute with boiled water. So I thought that was hilarious. And he did. He made the top part of this, which might be a dress. I thought it was a tunic top, but it could be a dress now that I think about it. Just over top of like these white tights and everything. And then straps. And I don't like it. It hides a lot of Jasmine's figure, and it seems very like kind of obscuring in that way. And then where he normally has these really soft feminine details, like he likes the pleat, he likes kind of ties and things like that. This one just didn't have much of that, probably just because he didn't have a lot of time. And then the belt around makes it feel like she's like graduating some weird college, and she got like an honors like rope or something. So I don't like it. And then I really don't like the lipstick with it. The lipstick alone on her skin tone works. On my skin tone, I would look like I literally was like dying of hypothermia. But that's a skin tone thing. So on Jasmine it looks good, but on this particular outfit, that's all I see because it's the only pop of color. It's just, I don't see anything else. So in that case, the makeup's distracting, and it's still a fashion competition, even though it's the Avon Challenge. So he was in the bottom. And then last we had Kenya, who Tim reminded us has not won yet. And the look Kenya gave him was like, well aware. And she had Lyris this week. And Lyris was really excited to work with Kenya, and they were like, how have we not been paired together yet? Like, super pumped to work with each other, which is nice to see, because earlier in the season, the people who got, like, Lyris and Jasmine, and there was one other larger model, that they were just like, oh my god. Like, the twins were always like, I've never worked with a plus-size girl, and it's like, honey, welcome to reality. Like, or Brandon in episode 1 was like, I got the hardest model, because he had Lyris, and it's like, 1, rude.
Yeah.
2, check yourself. Like, please. So what Kenny ended up putting down, and like I said, she also wanted to buy a red, so we could have had 2 red looks. But she ended up buying this blue, and it's like a cobalt blue, I would say. And she pleated the whole thing. So it is a dress, and it's tight-fitting, form-fitting dress, and it's kind of low-cut in the front. And then on, like, the shoulders, instead of, like, an epaulette, it's, like, blue petals that she pleated and hand-cut, and they're, like, double-layered and then sewn on, and I don't know, there's, like, 10 on each shoulder. Kind of look like big feathers, but they're, like, a leaf shape. And then they're kind of, like, loose over her, like, bicep.
Yeah.
V-cut front. It's got, like, kind of a little, like, umpire waist, and then it goes down to just below the knee, kind of like a pencil skirt, but it's all one dress. A zip up the back. What did we think of this?
To me, this was just okay. Like, I didn't love it. I like it better than some of the things she's made in the past couple weeks. But, I don't know, I didn't think the blue was that strong of, like, a power color. Like, I guess, like you said, it's like a cobalt blue, and it's bright. Like, I don't know. It's bright, it's bold, but I think it would have looked better in red. And then her concept was, like, the petals were supposed to, like, represent, like, all the weight that we carry on our shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
But petals and feathers are super light. Like, to me,
True.
that, it doesn't work.
It's true.
That's a dumb, I shouldn't say dumb, but to me,
It's a metaphor, Maggie.
not working. It's wackadoo. No, I don't know. Not the right symbolism there. Like, I like that, yeah, she's focusing on the shoulders, because, like, that would be pretty easy to understand, but a petal or a feather, no, doesn't match. Doesn't go there. I don't know. And I felt like, of course, Lyris rocked it and everything. She always does. Like, you can't make Lyris look bad. There's a quote about her, you might have it, about how she could, like, work a paper bag or something.
Yeah, Kenya said that, yeah. Which is true.
But, like, I even felt like there were just some weird fit issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for Kenya. Like, for Kenya's standards. It was just, like, I don't know. It wasn't her usual quality. And that's probably just because she was, like, struggling and she did most of her work the second day. Like, second and then the morning of the third or whatever.
Right.
However their timeline works. Rather than, like, actually using the full 2 days. So maybe that's all part of it. But I don't know. It was just okay for me. I wasn't really wowed by anybody this week. What'd you think?
I wasn't wowed either. I do like this a lot. I actually like the color. And I like kind of the owning of the blue. But I'm also not a huge red fan. For, like, all over.
Since Margarita used red, I think blue is a smart choice.
Yes.
But, to me, that's not your typical power color.
No.
Blue is my favorite color.
It's a very Walmart post office-y blue. You know, like, it's not like a navy or anything. I think if this was a navy, they would have been like, it's matronly. Except for that it's kind of low cut. Yeah. So I like that it's a youthful blue. Mm-hmm. I agree about the leaf petal things on the top. I wish they were in a contrasting color. I think if those were, like, black or, like, some other kind of, like, heavy feeling color, you would get that idea of, like, bearing the, like, brunt of the weight on your shoulders. I agree with the fit issues, especially the zipper. There's some very unflattering puckering around the booty area that shocks me as being a Kenya look. And I get she was a little pushed for time because she struggled with her idea, but the fit of the skirt is good, but it's a little bumpy on the hips, and then, like, the zipper booty area, not good. And even when she walked by, like, that, like, the end of the runway that has that kind of light screen, she walked by, you could see the bumps when she walked in. I'm like, no. Yeah. Lyris, of course, rocked it, and it fits her body probably about as good as the dress we really liked of Michael's on the Good and Evil challenge in terms of, like, it's showing off her body, it fits her curves. There's a couple fit issues, but not really anything as bad as we've seen in some seasons. I just wish the feather leaf shoulder thing was something more. Yeah. It just reminds me of, like, Laurence's power shoulders, where they were kind of, like, angular and kind of raised, or even the weird wackadoo things that Dexter made, like the big Mickey Mouse ear circles. I think that would have been, because this just isn't very editorial to me. No. Like, if you took off the leaves, you could buy this dress at, like, a JCPenney or, like, the business section of any store, you know, or, like, the dress section of any store. So it just, to me, it's kind of like, if you didn't have the leaves, and those petals just don't make it editorial for me. Yeah. And then the makeup here, blue dress with blue eyeshadow with bright red lipstick, it's just so 80s.
Yeah.
And not in a good way, because the 80s are kind of coming back. I think the 90s are more right now, but the 80s always seem to circle back. But not my favorite. But she was in the top. I do want to mention a few things that happened on the runway before we get to who won and who went home. I want to reiterate that there was absolutely no makeup talk at all. Not by one single judge at all, except for Heidi mentioned the lipstick on Jasmine and said she liked it.
But only during the close-up.
Only during the close-up.
Not in front of the designers.
Right. And not, yeah. So having it be the Avon Challenge just goes to show you that other than Jasmine's lipstick, they probably couldn't even see the makeup from where they sat, not 5 feet from the runway.
No.
Like, it's just not runway impact makeup, which is fine, but it just, then don't put it on the runway. So that was a bit of a miss. Also, it came up on the runway that Kentaro's look and Brandon's look were very similar. And I believe this was Nina pointed it out. She's like, can I say something? They look very similar. And one, I just have to harken back a few episodes to when the twins had their cheating allegations and how they helped each other and made each other's looks. And Nina was one of the first to defend them, saying, well, people get inspired by other people all the time. And then I think it was the guest judge at the time was like, yeah, like it's completely normal to be inspired by others. And then Zach was like, yeah, agreed. And now here, because Kentaro and Brandon both have an oversized aesthetic with strap detail, that they are the same. And one, Kentaro is Japanese, being inspired by samurai style Japanese fashion. So if anybody's copying anybody,
yeah,
it's not Kentaro copying Brandon, it's Brandon copying Kentaro in some aspects. And also, Kentaro usually does not go to Brandon and ask questions during the workroom. Brandon always goes and asks Kentaro, like, what do you think about these colors? He asked that in Mood. He's like, what do you think about these colors? And Kentaro's like, I think something lighter. When they're in the workroom, Brandon comes over, what do you think? So it's just like, it's not exactly Sean and Claire, Shawnee! You know, it's not, but it's, the more the season goes on, the more Brandon is relying on Kentaro. It says he's my number one competitor, but he's also my brother. So I don't see that these looks look too much alike, other than they're both a very modern, kind of deconstructed, asymmetrical, oversized look. They're not the first people to do it. If you follow Kanye West's fashion line, you'll see everything Brandon's made, just with more holes in it. And certain other designers as well. And then Kentaro, obviously, you know, basing something off samurai. Yeah, that happened, you know, hundreds of years ago, but yeah, it happened. So I did not like that, though. Bringing up copying on, especially this of all seasons.
Yeah. When we literally
Had somebody who was kicked off for cheating by measuring and copying other garments with Claire, and then most likely Sean was doing something. It's just like, really, Nina? You're going to bring it up between these two? So luckily there's no drama between Brandon and Kentaro, and that didn't create anything. Kentaro and Brandon were both just like, no. Like, we both had our independent sketching time where we sketch alone. We both came up with the same white hoodie kind of thing. Because Kentaro originally made a crop top hoodie as well. It just didn't end up fitting. So I'm guessing if that walked down the runway, we would have heard more. But I was just like, really, Nina? It felt so out of place to me.
I agree.
It just kind of blew my mind. And then during Margarita's critique, when they bring it up close, they're picking apart the corset and the colors especially. And Tim was like, I like it. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I see what's going on here. We're seeing a lot of Margarita crying in her talking heads. She cried when Tim came to the workroom to like check in with them. She was crying about how like cancer has touched her and everything like that. And I didn't perceive those as crocodile tears. You know, I thought they were legitimate, but you know, she's obviously showing a lot of emotion. He says, I like it. And then the judge is like, I don't like this. And he's standing there and he's like, is it really so terrible? I like it. And I'm like, at that moment I knew. I had a suspicion, because I was like, they're going to send her home over Kentaro when they were both in the bottom. And then when he said that, I'm like, okay, something's coming. And if you're a Project Runway fan, you know what I'm talking about. So it turns out Brandon was the winner.
Wow, what a shock.
I was so surprised I couldn't believe it. Do you agree?
I don't know. I guess I just really didn't care this week because I didn't really like anyone's that much. Like, I wasn't in love with anyone's.
No. With such a powerful, meaningful challenge prompt, no one really made anything that I felt was worthy.
No.
I'm actually really, while I was disappointed at first that it wasn't a real women's challenge, I'm actually glad it wasn't, because I wouldn't want anybody to have to walk down wearing these things trying to feel confident and beautiful and powerful after beating cancer. Like, sorry. I'm actually kind of glad they didn't have to do that. Brandon has won before with looks almost identical to this, so the idea that he won again for the 3rd time this season, fine. I think I preferred from an idea aspect. I think I would have given it to Ayana, just because Kenya's didn't seem editorial enough for an editorial challenge, and the fit issues were a little un-Kenya-y. So even though I didn't like Ayana's just as much as I didn't like Brandon's, I didn't like Brandon's because it's too one-note, but it was made well. Yeah. Whereas I didn't like Ayana's because it felt like a little too much everything in the kitchen sink. Which makes me realize Margarita made like a Mad Max, like, warrior woman outfit last week, too, didn't she? Oh boy. Yeah. But Brandon won. Yeah. And I've got a quote of the week that, sums that up. So, yep. And then it turned out that Margarita went home because they felt it was too costumey, which I think we all can agree with her color palette. So she goes back into the workroom. She's crying. All the other designers are like, oh, come in for a hug. And she's like, I just wanted to show, what a little Puerto Rican girl could do. And it's like, yep, tugging on the heartstrings. Yep. Tim comes in. He is very upset as well. Margarita gets up. She's like, okay, Tim, I'm ready. And he's just like, you're not going anywhere. And Tim Gunn whipped out his Tim Gunn save on episode 11 for Margarita.
Classic. Tim Gunn using it on the worst.
She's not the worst.
No,
the twins were worse than Margarita. She's just shown a few times in her talking heads, and then the whole how they brought about the allegations against Claire were founded. I agree Claire should have gone home. I agree it's cheating. Could you do it some other or less dramatic, less talk behind your back in Spanish way, please?
Yeah.
So, Margarita is saved, which means that next week we will have 5 designers again, and they made it clear that they will only have one more challenge. So unless next week is a double elim, we will have 4 people going to the finale, which has happened more often than it used to. It used to only be 3. Yeah. But the last several seasons now, it's the top 4 because, more potential. Yep. So, do you agree that Margarita should have gone home because it was between her and Kentaro?
Well, this one was tough because, I don't know. Kentaro's not his strongest look at all.
And this is the second week his hasn't been great. So it's I like his personality, but his looks.
I know. If we're talking just as people, of course I'm always going to vote for Kentaro. Because he's hilarious and cute and nice. And I don't know. And, I just don't enjoy watching Margarita as much. But I don't know. I do think that her concept was better, though, this week.
Right.
It was stronger. Maybe not executed as well as it could have been. It did read costumey, but the concept was there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Because, of course you can't argue with the Tim Gunn save. It was a nice moment to use it. But I'm just now, when someone I like goes home, it'll be gone.
Yeah.
They're leaving.
Well, it was similar, I think, last season. I wanted it used on Alex, even though it was episode 5, 4 or 5, whenever they did the, it was a team challenge and he was the team leader. And he had a moment with Tim as well, saying 10 years ago I tried out for Project Runway and I made it all the way to meet you. And you saw my looks and said I should try harder and then I wasn't going to make it. He's so he went back to school and he got a bachelor's degree and he got a master's degree and he became a teacher of fashion design and it changed. He's you changed my life, Tim Gunn. And Tim Gunn did not save him. No. And then a few episodes later, he used it on Cornelius. And we did not like Cornelius. I agreed he was bullied, but I wish that they had saved Alex. Maybe Cornelius would have been out by the time the bullying happened anyway. I cannot believe that Cornelius was in the top 5 of Project Runway ever. And that Alex wasn't. So I understand why Tim used it, but I feel like she, and I feel like her look was stronger than Kentaro's. Kentaro's kind of looked like a weird Jedi monk outfit, and then hers, I think if it was in any other color, she may have actually won.
Yeah.
I think it was just the red and gold. They only saw costume.
Yeah.
And then if she'd made the corset either slightly larger or not quite as tight, I think they would have loved it.
Mm-hmm.
If it was just a gold corset on a black dress, done.
Yeah, it was a good idea.
Yeah.
But, I don't know.
But either way, no one went home. So we get all 5 of them again next week.
That's true.
So before we get to the next week's sneak peek, I do have some quotes of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I have quite a few this time. So Brandon said early on in the episode in his talking head, and this is what I mean, that he was just getting a little weird and a little catty and a little unbrandon like this episode. He said, "Can I just win already?" And I'm like, Brandon, I think from episode 1, he has gotten the edit that Aaron got last season, where it's like, you're going to win. The judges love everything you've ever touched and everything that you do. You're going to win. Just be patient.
Yeah.
But, like, that line, like, I just win already. It's like, if someone else wins, I will be shocked. Unless, now, last season, I remember being shocked by what Rick and Laurence both made for their final collections. Because they both went so far from their strengths. So if he does something similar, then if he doesn't make what he's been making, because he's basically already made his final collection every episode, other than the unconventional ones, and the sleepwear one maybe have been exactly what he's going to show at Fashion Week. There will be no shock, no surprise, nothing new there. Mm-hmm. Maybe a couple different silhouettes just because he'll need to fill out a full collection. But it's just like, unless he really drops the ball in his finale, it's like, you're probably going to win, bud.
Yeah.
Tim had a couple good quotes this week when they were about to take their boxing lesson. He said, "Take good care of them. They are very precious." And even though this is not my favorite group of designers to be on Project Runway ever, most of them are nice and I do like them as people. And I always like to see that Tim, despite, I know he feels the same way. I know in interviews after, he's like, yeah, the show is not as good as it used to be. We don't get as high talent because not everybody wants to be on reality TV or on a show that's, so old. But it's just nice that he always gives legitimate help. He's never seemed checked out or like done and he always seems to like take them under his wing. And I like, Tim is just such a nice guy. Someday I hope to meet Tim and be like, Tim Gunn, thank you. And just, I won't hug you because I don't hug and I don't want to wrinkle your pocket square, but just what a stand-up guy. And then he said to Margarita when she was struggling with her look, and after he said costume, and she looked at it and said, I could see it, and he's like, I like it, and she's like, well, what will the judges say? And he said, we can't control whether they get it or not. This is what you want to send and the message you want to give. And that, in all things creative, is the truth. So I think there was a season really early on where a very young competitor took herself out of the competition. She's like, I'm just not ready to be here. Like, I just need to go home. And one of the other people who were remaining was so shocked. They were like, if you don't want to be here, then just make the look you've always wanted to make. They give you hundreds of dollars at a cool store. Make what you want to make, put it down the runway, and have them send you home for it. But have them send you home on, like, your magnum opus. And I don't remember what season that was. It was a long time ago. I don't even remember their names anymore. But that line always stuck with me because it's true. Like, if you're just going to, like, be like, screw this competition, I want to go home. Or like the guy whose dog died a couple seasons ago and he took himself out. Which I can understand, his dog got him through a lot of emotional stuff, but it's just like, then make one last thing. Even if it doesn't fit the challenge, it doesn't do anything, just to be like, I did it.
Yeah.
They probably wouldn't like that, and I like that too. You can't control what other people are going to think. The judges sometimes shock me season to season with it's like, wait, last season you would have ripped him apart, or in season 2 or 3 you would have absolutely like eviscerated that person on the runway. Now you're like, love it. So I just like that line from Tim. And then Nina, about Kenya's look, said you don't need hijinks to communicate power, because a lot of other people's looks on the runway this week had a lot going on, or had like a real like gotcha, like the corset, like a gold corset for armor, or like all the straps and bells and whistles and hoods and asymmetrical ruffle cape sleeve accents. Kenya's was just a dress with some petals. And it looked good. It wasn't great, wasn't editorial, didn't fit perfect, but it looked fine. But that you don't need hijinks to communicate power. Nina, I see as a very powerful woman, always moving up in the world, has a good voice for fashion, and I just like that. The powerful are powerful. It's kind of like if you're a creative person, you don't have to say you are. To like people who around you, or like if you're a powerful person, you don't have to say it. That's just who you are, and people are like, yeah, wow, what a powerful lady. No one's ever thought that about me, but someday
Really?
I will ooze power.
Stop.
I gotta use those hijinks. And then Rachel, our guest judge, said about Brandon's quote-unquote bonnet that it was a feminine take on a helmet. And while I disagree so strongly, it's actually crazy, I like that line, a feminine take on a helmet, which I think would be a helmet because women can still go to war and fight. But I kind of like that line anyway, of like a feminine take on a helmet, you know, because we don't actually need helmets to protect our brains, you know, we just need a bonnet.
Yeah.
Wow. And then my other quote from our guest judge this week was about Ayana's look. And much like our guest judge from last week, she just said, I love pants.
Okay.
So instead of saying something like Nina said, like, I love the idea of a power pantsuit, or I love the idea of like a woman going to work feeling empowered, which is a very real thing for most real women out there, is they want to go to work and feel confident and feel powerful and not feel like people aren't taking them seriously or listening to them just because they're women, you know, or like as a cancer survivor, I'm sure you feel completely brought low. Just completely brought down, like inside your own body is attacking you to, you know, to be able to beat it and to get powerful and strong again. I love pants. I'm just so done with actresses and random. We've also had some models who had little to say, you know, I just wish we had better guest judges, that's all. Next up, Heidi said about Ayana's look, she looks so powerful and sexy, showing no skin at all, which for Heidi Klum, that's why I wrote this down. Heidi loves skinny. She loves sexy. She loves showing skin. High cut, low cut. But I like that she even could see, because Ayana's a modest designer and, you know, her model was covered and only her feet, hands, and head were open, that she still looked powerful and sexy. And you don't have to show skin. You can show skin to get power, but you don't have to. So I liked that Heidi was the one who said that. Next up, Margarita, at the very end when she was offed, although she ended up staying before that moment, you know, she's crying, she's sad, and she was like, I made it so close. To die at this point, it sucks. And granted, I think everybody who's ever gone home, especially when you're like a week or two away from, you know, New York Fashion Week, I'm sure it's, you know, it does suck. But the fact that she said to die, like, it's a little over dramatic, but it just shows like her, love her, which I don't know. That's how dedicated she was. That she's like, like, and it's like, God, you probably would feel that way. She'd be like, I made it this close and I messed it up. You know, like, that would be really hard. But the way she phrased that to me was interesting. And then when Tim Gunn said, Margarita, you're not going anywhere, she like hugged him and she's like, I'm sorry to cry on your suit, which felt like a very Margarita moment, because she tends to like kind of overreact and do these things and then like pull herself back and be like, oh, I don't know. So I like that. And then obviously Tim doesn't care. You know, he's got 100 suits lined up. And they're all impeccable. Otherwise, do you have any closing statements for this episode? And then we'll get to the next week.
I don't. This episode, it was just okay for me.
I wish the looks had been better for the challenge prompt. I liked the challenge prompt. I have not always this season. A lot of the advertisers and the challenges, I've been like, what? But this one I thought was worthy and good, and I was disappointed. Next week, it looks like we're going to have another unique runway. Where it's going to be snow. So it might be like, in the judges behind them, it looked like a winter wonderland. So I don't know if the models will be ice skating down the runway, or if it'll just be like a snowfall kind of runway, or they have to make like winter themed items. I'm not sure, but there was snow and like icicles and stuff. And then Heidi mentioned in that it was the last challenge. So next week we either need a double limb or 4 people are going to the final. But otherwise, that's all I've got.
Yep, same here.
All right, so just to remind you guys, we are on Instagram and Twitter at Rav Runway. And then we are also now on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, so you can take us on the go out there and search for us. If you could rate us or leave a review, that'd be awesome, so we come up towards the top of the list, because obviously this is the greatest podcast about Project Runway. We give a full recap. That would be super helpful, but otherwise I think that's it for us this week, and we'll see you guys next week.